Bhagwan Shri Ram, together with Mahavir Swami and his brothers, were in the grove, was in a mango grove. And there the saints and sages, Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan, Sanat Kumar, they came to visit Bhagwan Shri Ram. And having visited Bhagwan Shri Ram and offered their prayer to Bhagwan, they returned to their region. Having returned to their region, Bharat wanted to ask Bhagwan an important question about the qualities of the Sant and the Asant. What are the traits, what are the marks of the Sant and the Asant? How are we to distinguish between the Sant and the Asant? And Bhagwan Shri Ram, he responds to Hanuman and his brothers. And what he says to them, Sant Asant ki assi karani. I will tell you about the actions of the Sant, the saintly person. For those who don't understand Sant, Sant means a saintly person, and the Asant, the evil person, the vile person. Jimi kuthar chandan acharani. The action is like that of the axe and the chandan. The vile person, he is like an axe. The saintly person, he is like the chandan, the tree, the chandan tree. Kataya parash malai sunubhai. So the chandan, what is the disposition of the axe? What does the axe do? What is the swabhav? His attitude is to cut, to bring destruction. So this axe, he cuts the chandan tree. But while cutting the chandan tree, nij guna dei sugandh basai. While cutting the chandan tree, what is the quality of the chandan? To give fragrance, to give sweetness. The chandan don't give up its quality and say, you know, you are cutting me, I wouldn't give you my fragrance. No. His quality is to give fragrance. So while cutting the chandan tree, the chandan will give its fragrance even to that very axe which brings destruction to it. Because of that swabhav, that disposition of the chandan, it finds itself on the forehead of the gods. So one takes the chandan, applies it on the forehead of the gods because of its attitude, because of its swabhav, because of its quality. What is the result of the axe? The axe will be placed in fire and beaten and burnt to be sharpened. So there is a result of our actions also. If we behave like the axe to bring destruction, we also will have to face punishment like the axe. And if our quality is to do good and to bring about good to the world, we will also end up like the chandan on the forehead of Bhagwan. We will end up in oneness with Bhagwan. Bhagwan Shri Ram, he spoke at some length about the qualities of the Sant and the Asant. He said, the Asant, they grieve to see others prosper. And when they are in distress, they rejoice at the sight of people's distress. He says the wicked, they burn at the sight of prosperity for others. And Bhagwan, having spoken about the qualities of the Sant and the Asant, Bhagwan Shri Ram, giving this discourse to his brothers and Hanuman, listening to the words of Bhagwan Shri Ram, Harshe Prem na Hriday Samai, their heart overflowed with love, listening to the words of Bhagwan Shri Ram. We also have the opportunity to listen to the words of Bhagwan Shri Ram as we are listening tonight, the words of Bhagwan Shri Ram through the pages of Ramayana, which must always bring joy and happiness to the Bhakt, the saintly persons. Karah binai ati barahi bara. And they paid their prostrations, their binai barahi bara, repeatedly. Hanuman hi harsha apara. And Mahavir Swami Hanuman, he was extremely happy. Pune Raghunath Nija Mandir gaye. Then Bhagwan Shri Ram, he returned to the palace. Ehi bidhi charit karat nitnai. And so every day he performed some new act. Some new act, some new charitra that brought joy and happiness to his bhakta, his devotees. Bar Narad Muni Avahi. And Narad would leave the home of his father, Brahmalok, and he will come to the city of Ajodhya. Bar, again and again, bar Narad Muni Avahi. He will come there to look at the glories of Bhagwan Shri Ram, to look at the charit of Bhagwan Shri Ram. And he will sing the praises of Bhagwan. Whenever he would look at the glories, he will sing his praises. Nitnava charit dekhi muni jahi, brahmaloka sabakatha kahahi. And when he looks at it, what he would do? He would go to the realm of his father. He would go to Brahmalok and he will sing the praises of Bhagwan Shri Ram to his father and others in Brahmalok. Suni Biranchi. When his father Biranchi Brahma will hear of these glories, Atishai Sukhamanahi, he will have that special joy in his heart. Puni Punitat, and he will say, "Oh my son, again and again, Puni Punitat, Karahu Gunagavahi." Please recite the glories of Bhagwan Shri Ram again and again. Sanakadik Naradahi Sararahi. And so Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan, Sanat Kumar, again and again, they will praise Narad. They will praise Narad for reciting the glories of Bhagwan Shri Ram. Suni Gunagan Samadhi Bisarahi. Sant Tulsidas tells us, even those who are in Samadhi, Suni Gunagan Samadhi Bisarahi, they will give up their samadhi, that is meditation, absorption into that Supreme Being. They will give it up. For what? To listen to the glories of Bhagwan. Sadara sunahi param adhikari. And they will find great joy listening to the praises. Jivanamuk. There are 4 stages of liberation, or 4 kinds of liberation. Sayuj, Sami, Salok, Sarup. Sarup is to take the form of Bhagwan. So we hear many times in our scriptures, when one would have given up the mortal coil, they will take the form of Bhagwan. Samip, to be in close proximity to Bhagwan. Salok, to go to the lok or the region of Bhagwan. And Sayuj, to merge in oneness with Bhagwan. But there is a 5th, Mukti. Jivanamuk. Jivanamuk is one who continues to live in the physical body, is already liberated and waiting for that moment that when they will give up the mortal coil, they would merge in oneness with Bhagwan. So we can attain mukti, we can attain liberation. We don't have to die to attain liberation. We can attain liberation in this very physical body. In this very existence, we can attain mukti or liberation. And one of the very famous examples of a Jivan Mukt we know is Janak, the father of Sita Mata. Janak, he had already attained liberation, but he continued to rule over the kingdom. In fact, I'm quite sure the many Pundits will know, especially our 2 most senior Pundit, Pandit Devki and Pandit Narayan, that when Sukadev Maharaj was born, Sukadev Maharaj told his father, Vyasji, he says, I am going into the forest, I am giving up the world, I am going in Samadhi. And the father said, you are giving up? What are you giving up? He says, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to go to Raja Janak and have satsang with Raja Janak. And if after that you tell me that you want to give up, then you can do so. So he goes to Janakpuri, and having gone to Janakpuri, he sits with Raja Janak and they are having conversation they are having satsang. Raja Janak, his back is towards the palace, while Sukdev Muni, he is looking at the palace. And Sukdev Muni sees the palace caught on fire. Now remember, you children know what is a jori. You tie up your little bundle with your important things in it, one or two little things. So Sukdev ji, he went with his little bundle. And when he saw the fire, he started to tie up his bundle quick, getting ready to run. Fire. So he's telling the king, King, the palace is on fire. The king says, so if the palace is on fire, what's the problem? We are having satsang. Let us continue with our satsang. God has given the entire palace, and if he chooses to take it, he will take it. What's the lesson? Sri Sukdev ji Maharaj, he was tied up to his little bundle. Raja Janak, even the great palace, he was detached. So he had that detachment even from his great palace. So that detachment, Jivan Mukt, we can continue to live, continue to exist, and we are detached. We would have already attained Jivan Mukt, already liberated. Jivan Mukta Brahmapara. So for the Jivan Mukt, those who are already liberated, meditating on that Supreme Being, Charita Sunnahita Jidhyan, when the glories of Bhagwan Shri Ram is being recited, they will give up their dhyan, their meditation, to listen to the praises of Bhagwan Shri Ram. Jai Hari Katha na karahi rati. It is said, those who have no love for the Katha of Bhagwan Shri Ram, tinake hiya pashan. Their heart is like that of a rock. Why like a rock? Why didn't say iron? You could heat iron and bend it. You can't bend a rock. You could only mash it up. You can put it for how long into the water, it will not bend. It will only shatter into pieces. Therefore, that person, their heart will not bend. They will not change. Therefore, we should develop that bhakti, that devotion to Bhagwan Shri Ram, to listen to his glories, and ultimately we will attain that state of Jivan Mukt. Bhagwan Shri Ram, ruling the city of Ajodhya, decided one day that he will invite the citizens of Ajodhya, so he will speak to them. We know every leader from time to time should speak to the nation, should address the nation. But there is not only the leader of the nation, there is the leader of the community, and there is also the leader of the home, the father, the parents. They are also leaders in the home. From time to time, they need to call together the family, the community, or address the country. In this case, let's talk about the father. The father is supposed from time to time to speak to the children, to indicate to the children what direction he would like to see them go. And in so doing, he should indicate to them what course of action they should embark upon. So one day Bhagwan, as that good leader, he called together the citizens of Ajodhya. Like each of us, from time to time, we must call together the family, the household. At the dinner table, we should speak to them. Right, Dinesh? We should speak to them. We should indicate to them what we expect of them. So, ek baar Raghunath bulaye, once Bhagwan Shri Ram, he called together. He called together the citizens, who he called Guru. The Guru, Vashish. Dvij, the Brahmins. Purabasi, the inhabitants. Sab aaye, and they all came. Baithe Guru, Dvijabar Muni Sajjan. So the Guru took his appropriate seat. Baithe Guru, Dvijabar. So too the Brahmins took the appropriate seat. The Munis, the saints and sages, and the inhabitants. Bole Bachan, Bhakt Bhai Bhanjan. And that Bhagwan, who relieves the fear of the Bhakt, Bhanjan is to break, Bhai is fear, Bhakt is devotee. he who breaks the fear from the hearts of the devotees, Bhagwan, he speaks to the citizens of Ajodhya. And what he says? Sunahu sakal purajan mama bani. He says, O citizens, listen to my words. Now it is important, before we speak to someone, before we speak to the family, before we speak to the community or the nation, we first should live a life as such that qualifies us to speak to them. You know, many parents cannot speak to their children because they themselves would not have lived such a life. So the child will say, Father, look what you're telling me, but what are you doing? Look what you are doing. And you are speaking to me? As I say, you had the mouth to talk to me. Bhagwan Shri Ram, having ruled as a good king, a noble king, today he is prepared to speak to the inhabitants. So too, parents need to set the example to the children by their own actions. You know, sometimes we see a good man in the community, but he's a bad father. A bad father can never be a good man. That's only a show. That's only a show he's putting on for the community. First, he has to be a good father. And only when he is a good father, he can be a good man. So a bad father can never be a good man. First, you have to be a good husband. Then you can be a good man. Bhagwan Shri Ram, living and setting that example, now is prepared to speak to the inhabitants of Ajodhya. And what he says to them, Sunahu sakal purajan mama bani. He says, O purajan, O inhabitants, listen to mama bani, listen to my words. Kahavana kachu mamata udani. I am not going to speak to you today out of any special love or any special favor for any one of you. That's a difficult thing, you know. You know, sometimes we say we love all the children equally. And we just tell a lot of lie over that, you know. Always have one we like a little more. But that child would have done the things through which the parent would love that child. The child who serves, the child who listens, isn't it that the parents will love that child more? I wonder who in this case. Shesh, you have to tell me. You could hold that thought. Sunahu sakala purajan mama bani, kahavana kachu mamata udani. So I'm not going to speak to you out of any special love for anyone. Nahi aniti, nahi kachu prabhutai. And that's a very important thing. He says, I am not going to tell you anything that is aniti. Aniti, niti is the law, anything that is against right conduct. Nahi kachu prabhutai. Nor is it that I am going to use my prabhuta, my position. How often we just say, you see me? I is the father, and I say so, and it had to be so. Right? We just hear parents saying that. I is the father, and I say so, using the position. He says, no, I'm not going to use my position and say, I am king, I am ruler. No, I am not going to use my position to speak to you. Nahi aniti, nahi kachu prabhutai. Sunahu karahu jautumahi suhai. So listen, sunahu karahu. And then you do, then you act. Jautumahi suhai. And act as you please. That's one of the basic principles and tenets of Sanatana Dharma. We all have the freedom to act. We all have the freedom to act as we wish. But there are consequences of every action. Bhagwan Krishna, having spoken Gita to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, at the end of the Gita, what he said to Arjuna? Yathichasi tatha kuru. I have spoken to you, O Arjuna. Now you do as you please. Whatever you want to do, you do. But there is a consequence. There is a result for every action, like that of the axe and that of the chandan. The axe chose to do what he wants, cut the tree. The chandan chose to do what is his swabhav, give his fragrance. What is the result? So when we also do as we please, whether as we please is right conduct or as we please is immoral conduct. Soi seva, priyatam mama soi. And he says, that person is my sevak, my servant, my devotee, priyatam mama soi. And that person is dear to me. Which one? Mama anushashan manai joi, who obeys my command. That person who obeys my command, that person is dear to me. You know, Bhagwan is commanding us every day, through the scriptures. His command is the scriptures. Who follows the scriptures, that person is dear to Bhagwan. So he says, Soi sevak priyatam mama soi, mama anushashan manai joi, jau ani tikkachu bhashao bhai, tau barajeu bhai bisarai. He says, if I am saying anything that you do not agree with, feel free to stand up and tell me. Feel free to stand up and correct me. You know, it's difficult for a lot of parents to tell their children that, Yes. But as I indicated, we first have to live the life, and when we speak to the children, when we speak to the family, we can say, feel free to correct me. Feel free to tell me I am wrong. So he says, Tau mohi bar jaun, bhai bisarai. Bhai is fear. Give up fear. Stand up. Tell me I am wrong if you think so. He says, bare bhagya. You know, often in life, we are wondering how unfortunate we are. Isn't it? Sometimes we say, how unfortunate I am. Unfortunate? He says, bare bhagya. He says, you already possess the greatest fortune. What's the greatest fortune? Bare bhagya manush tanupava. You have attained the human birth, and the human birth is the greatest fortune. You have the human birth. Sura Duralabh Sada Granthanagava. This is difficult even for the devatas to attain. Why? Because when the devatas, they are in that realm of devatas, they are stuck there. They cannot attain moksha. They cannot attain liberation. How often in the work environment, the boss will say, I want to promote you. And you say, boss, I want a promotion, Because if I go into that promotion, I can't go further. I want to go in a different way, that I can eventually become the managing director of the company. Therefore, I don't want this promotion. That's the promotion of the devatas. They are stuck. They are stuck as the devatas. He says, even the devatas, it is difficult for them to attain. Why? Because this human body, sadhana dham moksha kara dwara. It is sadhana dham. The human birth is a birth for spiritual practice. And it is only through spiritual practice one will attain moksha or liberation. So sadhana dham moksha kara dwara. Having attained the human birth, through this we practice sadhana, spiritual practice, and through spiritual practice we will attain moksha or liberation. Pai najihi padaloka savara. When one attains the human birth and would not have attained liberation, what's the condition? What's the complaint of such persons? Such persons will suffer, but in the next lok, and which is the next lok? Those actions would lead them to hell. So they will suffer in that lok, and they will also suffer in atra, in this lok. So par atra, in both lokas, this lok and the next lok, they will suffer. Dukha pavai, shir dhuni dhuni pachitai. They will beat their heads and lament. And what they would lament? Kalahi. They will blame Kal, time. Karmahi. They will blame fate, destiny. Ishwarahi. They will even blame God. How often when we do certain actions, we say, man, it is the time we live in man. That is what we had to do, isn't it? We blame time. We must never blame time, we must never blame fate. They blame karmahi, fate, destiny. You know, God wanted so. How often we hear people say, God wanted so. We say that conveniently. We become prisoners of that word destiny. We are not prisoners of destiny. We are only prisoners of our own minds. Our own minds imprison us, not destiny. We have freedom. We have freedom by virtue of our own karmas. So they blame destiny. They even blame God. Kalahi, karmahi, ishwarahi, mithya dosha lagai. And so, falsely, they blame all these things. We are never prisoners of fate. We must break away from that prison of fate, and we must attain freedom by virtue of our karmas. So having attained the human birth, what is the purpose of the human birth? He says, Ehi tanakar phala vishay nabhai. It is not for the fulfillment of sensuous pleasures. Attaining the human birth is not for the fulfillment of sensuous pleasures. It is not for calm. The human birth is for dharma. Calm destroys, dharma uplifts. So, ehi tanukar phala vishayana bhai, swargahu swalpa anta dukhadai. It is not even for the attainment of swarga. Swarg, we go to swarg, spend a little time and come back. We know the Hindu concept of swarga and moksha. So we can perform some karmas and we go to swarga. We spend a little holiday and we come back again. The object of the human birth is to attain moksha or liberation. So he says the human birth is not even for the attainment of swarga, because that is short-lived. Swarga huswalp and dukhadai, and we come back into this world where there is sufferings and difficulties. It ends in sorrow. Naratanupai vishay manadehi palati sudhate shat vish lehi. He says the man whose mind is engrossed in sensuous pleasures is like that person who gives up nectar in exchange for poison. So you possess the nectar, but you give up the nectar and you take poison instead. What's the nectar? Dharma. What's the poison? Calm, sensuous pleasures. Tahi kabahu bhala kahayana koi gunja gahay paras mani koi. He says it is no more than a person who would give up the paras money. You know, in the bhajan we talk paras money, the philosopher's stone. It is not beautiful looking, but it is a precious gem. And we give up that paras money for what? A few pieces of glass. You know, you have a glass in the house, it's broken, you are taking it out and it's glittering. The broken pieces are glittering against the sun. The ignorant man says, oh, that's so beautiful. I have the paras money, take it, give me those pieces of broken glass. You are going to throw that out. You are going to dispose of it. But the ignorant man thinks it looks so beautiful when it reflects against the sunlight. We are no wiser than that man to give up the paras money. That's bhakti, devotion, in exchange for the sensuous pleasures. He says, Akarachari lakh chaurasi. There are 8,400,000 species of life forms. And in those 8,400,000 species of life forms, finally we get the human birth. When we get the human birth, फिरहूँ सदा माया प्रति फेरे काल कर्म स्वभाव गुण घेरे कबहूँ करी करुणा नर देहि. Then Bhagwan, through his karuna, through his mercy, he gave us the nardi, the human birth. Deta ish binuhet sanehi. So he gave us this human birth not because of any special love, but he gives us now to see what we will do with this human birth. So now, having the human birth, it prepares us first with a boat, with a raft. We talk about this world of transmigration, birth and death. So think of a physical ocean. You have to get from one side to the other. You need to get from one side to the other, so the first thing you need is a raft, a boat, something that can take you across. So you now got the first thing, the human birth. Naratano bhava baridhi kaha bero. So you now have that boat, that raft to take you. But having that raft alone is not enough. You need sanamukha marut anugrahamero. Well, I think they're talking about long time when they had sailboat, right? So you need wind. So you need a fair wind, you need a good wind that will blow into the sail to take you into that direction. Sanmukha marut anugrahamero. And what is that wind? That wind is my grace. So you have the human birth, my grace is available. Only for the asking. Karanadhar. But you know, we can have the boat, we can have the fair wind, but there is no direction. There is no helmsman to guide the boat. Someone has to guide the boat in a direction. Otherwise, you would only go in circles. So we need someone to guide that boat. Karanadhar Sadguru. Who is that person? Who is that person who will guide that boat, the Karanadhar, who will give it direction? That person is the Guru. There is where we find a Guru who can give direction to our life. Durlabhasaj sulabh karipava. So that which was difficult to attain is now attainable. The human birth, the grace of Bhagwan, and the Guru. And that is what will take us across the ocean of transmigration, birth and death. If we would have attained this human body, we would not have reached out to secure the grace of Bhagwan, and we would not have had the Guru, that person who would not have crossed the Bhavasagar, that ocean of transmigration, birth and death. Narasamaj asapai, having the human birth, having readily available the grace of Bhagwan, having available the Guru, then such persons, so kritaninda, mandamati. He says that person is kritaninda, that person is ungrateful to his own self. He is ungrateful to his own self. Atamahan gatipai. And he is a destroyer of his own Atma, his own soul. The greatest sin we can ever commit is suicide. And we would have committed suicide to our soul. Let us not commit that great sin of suicide to our own soul. Let us utilize the human birth. Let us utilize it through bhakti, by reaching out to Bhagwan, getting his grace, finding the Guru to give direction. And in so doing, we will cross the ocean of transmigration. We would have made this human birth worthwhile. Only what is cultivated could be harvested. We cannot expect not to cultivate, but to harvest. So only what is cultivated could be harvested. Let us cultivate that attitude. Let us cultivate that lifestyle. Let us cultivate the bhakti. Let us have regard and respect for the Guru. And in so doing, we will be able to cross the ocean of transmigration, birth and death, and there will be no regrets about the human birth.